Welcome back. So good to see a bit of bling happening. So more than panels this week, but we're still working on that front end. Look, I really want to thank you all for subscribing. I know I asked for people that maybe are watching and not subscribing. It does help us to keep the channel going, and I really appreciate the fact you've done that. Anyone else out there, click the button for me. Yeah, just loving it. Enjoy the show. So last week we finished a bit abruptly because that's sort of where we're up to with the job. So I'm not on this all the time, but I'm trying to get my way through it obviously, and I really want to start doing some filler work before Christmas because we've got to paint it in early in the year. So this corner, so I spoke about getting this mould down, so I've got it down looking nice now. So that the tape's on there because it's got a clip that holds them on, and they're quite nasty to get on and off all the time. So we clip it down. I know it'll go down that tight. So I've got that looking good, and I spoke about cutting this panel here. So I've cut that down, and I've gone from nothing to about 5 mil, and just put a tack on there now, and I'll TIG that back on, can MIG or TIG it, and I've now ground this back, as you can see, by about 4 mil. So that's giving me my 5.5, and it may even be a little bit more, because if you're going to do this, so that's pretty much 5.4. So when I weld that now, you need to make sure there's enough penetration so that when you grind it back to get your nice 5.5 mil, there's enough metal left that doesn't split, you know, in the whole process. So now that I've got that right, and then if we go down here, this is factory, I'm at 5.5 at the moment there, and then it tapers all the way up. So I'm going to trim it off the door because the actual guard, the panel goes around and back and in and has all those spot welds on it. So I'm going to trim it off the door, and then down the bottom, you'll see here I've cut the metal here. And the reason we've done that is someone had put a patch in this guard prior to us, and the patch wasn't bad, but it was just pronounced and it was sitting out too high. So rather than try and shrink the metal because it was a bit much, I've put a slice into there and knocked that back in, so that now we're nice and flat through there. So we'll weld that up. That gets all my alignment going this way. And then last week I spoke about pulling this, so we've cut it, pulled it out, welded it all back together, and now my door gap and my panel gap here all lines up. So I'll keep chipping away at that and get that gap nice. So I also spoke about this guard where I'd cut the wheel arch out and made some repairs. So we actually, what we did was we moved the wheel arch forward 30 mil. So I cut the whole thing out, put it in, put a piece up through this line here. So in doing that, I obviously had a whole lot of repairs to do there, but these cars have a problem with the guard having a big belly through this area where the badge goes. So to get things to line up, so the door's pretty much flat, and here had a belly in it. So all that shrinking process there was to get all my lines now nice and straight. So I've got a little bit of flipping up to do, but I'm mainly chasing my main line. So I've got that all nice and flat now. And I find it interesting that people talk about blocks and, you know, having the car dead straight. And I just find that really interesting, especially with the Falcon, because if you get a straight edge and put it on a Falcon, they're not very straight at all. So that's probably got 15 mil, and then if you come up here, the natural shape of the car has got, you know, 25 mil of curvature in it. So if you have the panels off the car and you block each one dead flat, like that, and that, you're going to end up coming to a point. So you would have seen people using all these big blocks now. So a hard block on a Falcon is not much value to you because you need to be able to put that curve in it. So what I'm going to show you in a minute is where that curve through here is, and I'll look at my line through here. You can see there that this is sticking out a bit, and I think it's more to do with this one being in than this one being out. And the reason I say that is that when I put my straight edge on there, the bottom line's straight, up here's straight, but in the middle it's actually in. So we've welded all the back of these. I mean, these panels have had a lot of work done to them. So I'm going to do what I did back here on this door, and I'm going to hit the back of this with a dolly on the front to stretch that metal out so that I can just bring it out that extra mil or so that when we go to block across the door, I won't be putting a big heap of bog on the back of this door, because I don't like to have, you know, a whole lot of thickness on the back. So if you go along and use that straight edge again and look at the shape of the car, you can see just how much these cars bend and move. So my aim now is to get a consistent Coke bottle shape that is the true Falcon shape. Righto, so what I'm aiming to do now is I need to get this panel here to come out this way, just, you know, 1.5 mil, so it lines up with the other one. And like I keep saying, the idea is I've got a nice, you know, 2.5, 3 mil edge on the back of the door. So I don't want that edge to be 2.5, 4, 2.5, 3 in and out. So when you open the door up, you can basically see the car's full of bog. So every car's got filler in it. I'll rephrase that, 99% of cars have got filler in it, because there might be the odd one here and there that's been nicely file finished, but they're pretty rare nowadays. So what I'm going to do is I need to stretch the metal. So if I pull a slide hammer on there and give it a yank, it's just going to pull it, and the metal's got to come from somewhere. So the aim here is to put dolly on the outside. This is just a flat dolly. And then I'm going to hit it with a hammer on the back, and my aim is to make that thinner, that metal thinner, which means it's going to grow and give me the little bit that I need. So let's see how we go. It's a bit hard because I'm backhanded at the moment. So I've got my 2 lines I'm working to. I reckon I've picked up 1/2 mil in the middle. You can see there now, not bad there, not bad there. Wants a little bit more just in the middle, so right in the guts there. So that's getting real close, so I just want a little bit more down the bottom here. So looking down there, you can sort of see there, when I push that in, because it's got a curve in it, just right on the very end, there's a bit of a dip and a bit more there, so that's the bit I'm chasing. So I'm just going to try and make sure I hammer right out on that back edge now. If we come in from the back and have a look in here, the back of these doors have been fully welded. So they're a little bit different to a standard car. So we've welded the skin to the frame so that when we bog wipe that, it's going to look all, you know, show car-y. So that's what's helping to enable me to do what I'm doing. But I have done this before with a normal skin. You just got to be careful on the inside about damaging that back edge where you're looking to maintain that as part of the factory look. So I just need to get this outside edge. So I'm just leaving that dolly back a few mil so that I'm trying to force this back edge over a little bit. So that's looking pretty good. If you come around with the camera, yep, around on the angle like that, you can see through here, it's pretty good, and then we've just lost it a little bit there. So that's either got to go in a bit, or this has got to come out a bit, and I'm thinking this one's got to come out. So yeah, so this one here now, I'll need to pull that out a bit, so I'll get to and get that done as well. So I wanted to get this brace back in, so I've cleaned all that up, made sure all the rust is gone, deoxidine, and now put a couple of coats of epoxy urethane on it. So that enables me now, I can put this back together, weld it up so I can keep moving forward with the gaps. So I've got that all set up now, back into where we had it before with the Klecos, and then I've put some vice grips on there to hold it nice and tight. And then I've just gone along with a little wire brush and cleaned out the original spot welds that we drilled out. So I'm going to probably only do every second one, double check to make sure it fits back how I wanted it, and then come back and finish it up. So we'll get a couple done and see how we go. Helps if you turn the shield on. Okay, so Darren was off yesterday, so I grabbed the opportunity to get that inner framework painted up on the weekend when Bathurst was on, and then I've cleaned that whole area up now and I've got that looking nice. So this morning we've got that welded back in, and now we're working our way forward. And part of the advantage of making these nose cones is we've been able to make sure this front's 100% straight. So normally you don't have the opportunity to do that, so we've just been pushing that nose cone around to get our line straight there. And then in addition to that, we can also make the gaps all the way around the headlight and the grille to the nose cone all really nice. So that's been coming together pretty well. And for some reason with these cars, the driver's side guard's always a bit harder than the passenger, and this particular guard has gone on pretty well. The lines up through here are much better. We don't do anywhere near the amount of work, probably won't have to do any work there that we did on the other side. So we've got all those lines looking really good now. So Darren made these nose cones last year and they've been sitting waiting for the job. So when we went to put them on, they were made off of the original aluminium ones, the shape. We've actually had to do a little bit of cutting. So just explain to us what you've been up there with those, Darren, this morning.
I need to put a couple of slots in there to try and fit the guard properly. There's a hell of a lot less metal across here than what there is here when we made it. So a couple of slots, and also it was sort of sticking out here. These were made exact to the originals, and that's why usually an original car doesn't look quite as good. So we've cut them, straightened everything up. There's another cut inside there just so we can push that in just that slight little bit more without lifting this corner, and then we'll just whack a tack back on there, and then we'll get our gap nice and uniform. So we had a lot of trouble with the cobblers, didn't we, trying to get that grill to the nose cone right. Yeah.
Okay, so it's interesting now that we get all that done, so the next part to go on is the bumper. So the bumper came with the car, of course, and it had some modifications which we were happy with, but when we go to put it on, and obviously the grille can't be changed in the shape, but the bumper bar, the top edge is all original, but the actual angle, the grille to the bumper is substantially different. So it looks like we're gonna now cut the bumper in the middle and change the shape of that altogether. So we'll put the camera down, get that bumper off and give it a cut and just show you what we're doing. We're just marking the center of that now. We're gonna do 3 cuts. 1, 2, 3, just enough to get it down so that we're dealing with the flats. And then we'll give it a bend and hopefully pick up our 20mm that we're looking for. Alright, so we've put that straight edge through there, done a reference point here before we cut anything, and now we're just going to see if we can stretch it. It looks like it might go fairly easily. So the idea was we've cut all those all these angles, so now it should bend through there. We can tack it and weld it back together again, hopefully. So we've got that back in, obviously cut it bolted the brackets back on properly, so they're still loose on here because there's a lot of tension through there when you're trying to move things around. So we've got close to where we wanted to be, but the obvious thing now is both sides here are good, but the centre is too high. So I'm just going to put a shifter on here. While we've got that cut, it'll be quite simple, I think, to grab hold of that and just give that a bit of a tweak. Like that. So I've picked up half of it, but I've actually bent this out here now, so I'm going to have to do a bit with that. But I need to get that line looking nicer than it is. So I might put a bit of flat bar in there to push the load over a wider area and just see if I can get that down a bit. And then we need just another 5 mil. You can see there when I push on that, just opens that up and goes in, and then we get this line looking real nice through there. So we'll probably put the leather blanket over it, push it in, put a tack on it, see if we can twist it around. So now I've got to fix that dent. But it's all part of the process. A little bit of thunder today and a bit of rain, no lightning, even got a bit of blue sky with it. So we've got that back on now, so I cut the centre, pushed it in, put a tack on it, covered it up with a leather blanket, and now just tweaked it up and down and got our lines looking a whole lot better. And I'm pretty happy as well the way the end looks. So remembering this bumper's had the ends sectioned previously, so all in all, most of those gaps are looking good. So we'll rip it back off again and now weld that back up. So that's all welded up now and looking a whole lot nicer. So back to that same old philosophy of getting everything to sit right and look nice. There's a little bit of curvature in the top of this bumper still on this side we'll fix. But other than that, it's looking pretty sensational. So the bumper's going to be body colour, the grille will be black. So that bumper's had the ends cut off and changed. That was prior to it coming to us. And now we've just sliced it in the middle to get that all to look nice and even. So now that that grille, and all the fronts squared up, take the opportunity now to put these brackets in. So the original brackets were a bit of 1 mil pressed up with a side bracket with some spot welds, so not very neat. So we've made some out of some box section earlier. Going to weld those in position now, and they're a bit longer. So this tends to fall away and often the corner breaks out, and you can see where this one's been repaired. So we'll now drill a hole to match up so the bolt goes in and it'll give us more support and just clean up that whole front, all looking nice and square and even and no bits and pieces hanging off. Okay, so in the booth now I've got the door handles, the brackets for the interior lights and also the rear engine mount. And Steve's been cleaning those up with paint stripper and a bit of sandblast and a bit of sanding. So they're all nicely cleaned and prep soled. So I've now put some CF epoxy on those. And that's just primarily to keep the rust off them and working towards at some point getting some paint on them. And that CF just has a nice finish. Those brackets in the C-pillars, they'll probably stay as they are, but the door handles will now, they've got enough on the inside, and the outside we'll be able to put on the finish coat, whether that's body colour or whether it's black. So I just wanted to give Mothers a plug. Without Mothers and PPG, we really don't have a program. So because we're not playing with anything shiny at the moment with the build, I thought I'd just bring to you some of the things we've been doing outside the build. So these two products here, the trim cleaner and the naturally black, really good on your plastic. So I've been doing the engine bay. So all of these black plastic items, really bringing it up like new. So all of this stuff, this is an 06, so quite old, but make a massive difference to bring it up. So if you've got an old car or an older car, probably even a new car, get hold of some good product. The Mothers Naturally Black does an awesome job. So when I'm cleaning up the engine bay, there's a couple of little things that I wasn't happy about. One is the top of this normally has a sticker on it, and the sticker was missing, but it had a little bit of glue on it, and I've removed the glue now, and it's funny how it's nice and shiny and the rest is flat. So I haven't worked out what I'm going to clean that with, but if anyone's got any bright ideas, I just want to get the oxidisation off it and try and get it look as new as possible. So if you've got any ideas, put through a comment and I'll appreciate it. The other thing is the filler cap was looking really ratty, and I thought on the off chance I'd ring my dealer, and surprise, surprise, they're still available from the Ford dealership. So if you've got an old FPV and you're still looking for parts, give your dealer a ring, because they may still have some bits just like these. So I grabbed a spare as well to go in the toolbox, but left the rest for you guys. So give them a call and you might be able to grab one for your car. So I'm just sitting here today sorting out nuts and bolts. So this has all just come back from A-Class Metal Finishers. So they've been doing my work for, I don't know, 30 years, I guess. And what I've learned over the years that I'll pass on to you is whatever you give your platers is what you're going to get back. If you give them rubbish, rusty bolts, then they can only do so much with that, especially with bolts, because the time that it takes for them to clean them is not worthwhile. So I spoke to you before about that on some of the previous programs. There's a few items like these are the ones that hold the striker plates on. So that's our striker plates we're going to use, which are stainless steel, which are an aftermarket part. But I needed a bolt that's going to look nice in there, that's nice and shiny. So I've used the blue zinc, but I've polished those up before they went. So they've got a nice look and they look good, happy with that. We go into black. So I've showed you before the stainless steel bolts with a little Ford logo. I've had some of those done in black. I always call it zinc. I guess now I always call it CAD, but it's actually zinc. So it's black zinc and over the stainless. So now I don't have to paint those bolts that go on the radiator support panel and in around the grill area. And the reason for that is they don't chip and mark as badly or as easily as if they do if they're painted. So there's a whole stack of those there. And while I'm on the black CAD, these are the little brackets that hold the grill badge on, and we've made those up to replace the originals, which were rusty. But when we get a close-up, you'll see how they've got that nice sort of bluey black look that makes them look like a new old stock part. So we've got those for the grill. And then all the other bolts that sort of work through. Some of these, like the ones for the front bumper, will probably end up being painted, but at least I know they're not going to rust inside the sills. And then there's a whole range of bits and pieces that go towards the car. So I've sorted them out now so I can bag them up. You know, internal doors, these hold all the windows together. I spoke before about the bolts for the gearbox, so that's off the pan. So I've decided to stay with zinc again, so it's the silver zinc, and that'll look really good against the colour we're using on the pan, and they now look like nice brand new bolts. And then there's a couple of chrome items, so the boot lock. Now you'll see there we've pulled that apart, and the reason for that is on the inside of the boot lock is this little aluminium piece that's like a rocker bit. That's part of the locker mechanism. If you put that in to get plated and don't pull it apart and take that out, when it goes in the dip, that's going to evaporate or partly evaporate, and if not evaporate, it will break down the track. So you really need to pull it apart, get that spring and little gadget out of there, get those plated and then reassemble it. And then we've done the same with this. I haven't done this before, but I've actually pulled that apart so that we can get a nicer chrome job. And the spring and all there, and we'll just put a nice probably stainless steel bolt through that to make that finished. And then all these items go inside the doors. So, you know, the slide mechanisms for the window frames, and it's all about longevity, making sure this car lasts, you know, for another 40 or 50 years. And then some of the parts you'll never see, like these, go on the back of the door handles. And the reason I've had those done is, this is how they are. They're in a gold from the factory, but they've got a very bad habit of doing that. So this one here is not so bad. It's survived the process a bit more, but in the mainstream they look like that. So we've just had 4 good ones replated so that this car, you know, inside and out should be good. And then these are obviously the little plates that go in behind these. And I've had those done for the same reason with the rust, and we get a nice shiny end on the end when we bolt them up. So very happy with the job as per usual from A-Class Metal Finishers, and we can bag those up and put them aside till we go to assembly.